What is going on, everybody? My name is Ged. This is Fabulous Flix, and with me, as always, as to be honest, I don't know if I could do it without you at this point, is my man, the much happier, much more enlightened, the revitalized rogue leader. Happy Monday.
I don't know if it's much happier after what I just watched, but
Well, I meant happier in
Going
terms
through a
of
few of
your
these.
relationship with YouTube and
oh yeah, that's better. That's better.
okay, yeah.
Yeah. I filled out a customer satisfaction survey, and I gave very good remarks. Just because I wanted to help my man Jonas, who helped me out, though.
Shout out to Jonas if you ever happen to watch any of these. Thank you for helping my boy out. We had to have him on watch there for a couple days, so we appreciate.
He's the real hero. He's the real hero.
Not all heroes wear capes.
No.
Some work for YouTube.
Yeah.
So let's dive into it. Episode 3 of The Last of Us.
A long one.
A long one.
It's like an hour 15 or something like that, I think, right?
Yeah, very, very, very long one. I watched it last night. When did you watch it?
Just now. The football game was on last night. It was tied, and I'm like, I think I should go watch The Last of Us. And Kelsey looked at me. She's like, if you from like 5 years ago could see yourself right now, you'd probably slap yourself. I was like, you know what? You're right. I will stay on this couch and finish this football game.
Yeah.
I will find a way to squeeze it in tonight, which I did. So
yeah.
Here we are.
So we are treated to a different story, a sub story. When we got on right before we went live, you said, "Oh, look, they're not going to have, there was no, there might be no pre."
Yeah, like I thought the formula was to hit us with like a little, pre, outbreak type of scene to build up, and I was like, "Oh, it's not there." But then, we certainly, I guess we got like, it was post outbreak, but it was right from like, I don't know what day 2, day 1,
pretty
right?
much,
the military rounding people up. Yeah.
Yeah, they're rounding people up in it. And it's interesting how as Ellie and Joel are taking that walk, like, he tells her not to walk in a certain area and she goes because it's not scary. And, she sees the remains of people and she's like, well, these people weren't sick. And he's like, yeah. Obviously, for anybody tuning in, I see a couple people are. We are definitely going to have spoilers on here, so I apologize in advance. So we pick up an interesting sub story of this crazy, what does he call himself? A survivalist.
In my head, I'm just like, this is like, you just know the stereotype he's playing. Like that American preparing for the apocalypse, every gun imaginable. He's like, it was like, you almost wonder if that was like the happiest day of his life when shit went down. You know what I mean? Like I feel like that's the type of person. But what Nick Offerman gave us was, his like we're only going to get him for one episode, I would imagine, and his development from where you see him to where he ends was just, at first I thought it was going to be weird seeing Ron Swanson do a really serious role, but he knocked it out of the park.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, for anybody that's watched Parks and Recreation, you mentioned how that's, one of your favorite shows on there. I haven't watched it like in sequence, but if it's on, I'll watch it because it's super funny, right?
Yeah.
And seeing the role he played and seeing what he tackles in this is, first of all, it was done incredibly well. For those of you, I guess kind of a 30-second, like a 20-second Cole's notes on it is, he's a survivalist. He basically builds this fortress around his community. He is completely gun militia happy. And a real live person who's not infected, falls into his trap and he invites this person in. These two gentlemen engage in a relationship.
It was basically The Notebook zombie style. Yeah.
And what I was saying was, when you look at the character of Ron Swanson and what you assimilate with the gentleman that plays that character, and you see the range and what he tackles, because what he tackles in this episode is not easy. Let's be honest. No matter how talented you are, I mean, to play the role that he played as convincing as he did it. I mean, that was a stretch for sure. And I mean, wow. The transformation, as you said, you see in this character is insane.
This episode subverted my like what I thought was going to happen multiple times when he first meets Frank and lets him in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, but I was on the edge of my seat tension because after watching The Walking Dead and other apocalypse shows, normally other humans are the worst people, right? Like I thought Frank was for sure going to wait for his opening and kill him right off the bat and take his stuff.
100%.
And
I saw it going sideways real
yeah.
fast.
Oh yeah, the second he got him to sit down convince him to sit down on that piano, I was like, it's game over.
Yeah,
but that's not what happened.
And Knox, I'm more familiar with his Nick is hilarious role from Kings of Summer. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think we were both on the same page there. I mean, we're both waiting for something really bad to happen, and then by the time he serves him dinner and he pairs it with a Beaujolais.
Yeah.
I mean, that was really the first inkling that something was different. Because the last thing you would think of, based on the character that had been portrayed in that moment, was any type of wine pairing. You'd think that his choice in food would have been very rustic.
Well, it's two like bearded, rugged-looking dudes, kind of, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he prepares this beautiful meal.
Yeah.
He turns it the proper way, and he pairs it with a particular bottle of wine. And you can hear Frank say, "It's interesting that you would know to pair this with a Beaujolais." And it was kind of like, "Oh, all right. Well, he's basically prepping him to kill him." And that is not what happens. So let's skip and talk about how do you feel they did in terms of integrating Joel and Tess into this?
I was thinking before we were doing this, I'm like, we got this, like, call it what you want. We've got this incredible episode with two individuals who we aren't going to really see again, right? So I thought it was a lot of great character development, but I don't know, could it have been used more on maybe Joel and Ellie, or even more Joel and Tess? I like that, once when he said, I'm talking to the girl on the radio and like I want to have friends over, you almost kind of knew exactly that was going to be the tie-in, and sure enough it was. I like that. And then it obviously set up a spot for Joel to come with Ellie after, when they're kind of looking for stuff, right? So that whole part was set up. I love the note at the end. Like you could literally hear, like he literally writes Nick Offerman's laugh in the note. Like, yeah. I laugh
when Ellie's reading it.
Yeah. But yeah, I thought it was, and again, we still got some good development with Joel and Ellie at the end, and even the beginning. You could see them kind of warming up. And to your point, I know I think you were trying to zero in on Tess a little bit. In the note, when he says, when you find that person and protect that person, and he writes Tess in the letter, I think you could immediately know Tess is going to become Ellie. Like that's going to be the person he devotes his life to protecting.
And here's the thing. Obviously, I haven't said a word about how I feel about this episode yet, and I'm obviously doing that on purpose.
Yeah.
But I will hint that I have virtually zero gripes, zero concerns. I cannot find a flaw in this episode, and I'll talk about that in a couple minutes. But if I could be hyper picky, I would have loved to see a moment where Joel allowed himself to momentarily, even if he caught himself, to open up to Ellie just a little bit.
Yeah, he's still pretty standoffish. Like right away, he's like, "You do not speak about Tess. We do not ask about each other's stories. Like that's it.
Yeah, we don't talk about our histories. Yeah,
like that's gonna. I'm assuming that will obviously change, but yeah,
yeah. I'm having trouble talking about the episode, though. Talking about how I feel about the episode.
Well, we get there. The only other thing I would say is, I'm just trying to read the other things I wrote. Is did they do this? I'm assuming this is a big departure from the game. I'm assuming maybe
On
Bill and
Google,
Frank
I
were
saw some
was it?
similarities. Yeah, there
Yeah.
were definitely some digital renderings that were really key.
But I would imagine Bill and Frank are characters in the game, but I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't imagine you got the whole story of how they got to where they got. I could be wrong, but I wonder if someone's played the game, let me know. I got a feeling it's a bit of a departure, but
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Knox. I apologize. I didn't see your message coming in.
yeah, I totally
Yeah,
agree with that.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
That's
no, I
exactly
totally
my
agree with.
thoughts.
The one other scene I want to touch on was where Bill is injured, where he's wounded,
Oh, they
and
do the flip flop too. Yeah, that's the other
yeah,
thing I was caught off guard with. Yeah,
so cool when he's like when the Raiders are coming and all the booby traps are going
yeah.
off, and he ends up
Here's
getting
my
wounded, worrying about Frank.
here's my one gripe. Why is he standing in the middle of the street shooting with a
Yeah, it's
sniper
fair.
rifle? He could have been perched up anywhere taking those clowns out. Instead, he opened himself up. But
He's standing in the middle of the
it
street.
didn't.
Yeah,
He didn't die from it, so I guess it's kind of a moot point. But yeah, it was another thing too. I was expecting, Bill, the way they like he looked dead on the table when they zoomed out, and
100% he
then
did.
and
Yeah, I
then it
thought that
flips
was
out.
it.
Yeah, and they the thing I thought was interesting too, like earlier when they're running and he's like dying out of breath, he's like, "Sorry that I'm the one who got old first." And they
Mm-hmm.
make it seem like Frank's going to take care of Bill, and then all of a sudden, it's
Yeah,
completely the script flips.
yeah, and then you find Frank is sick.
Yeah,
I gotta tell you, man, we have watched a lot of TV. We have talked a lot about shows. I was so blown away by this episode. I understand it was a sub story, but I think it shows growth in this time of despair. When the world is falling apart, I think there's a lot of parallels here.
yeah,
I think that when the world was falling apart, you saw this person and even said like, have you ever done this before? Well, once with a girl many years ago. This
yeah,
is someone who was never ever able to be themselves. And it was in this horrible moment, this awful tragedy of the world falling apart where he was able to be himself. He was able to find love. I don't know if I've watched a better episode on television in a very long time. I'm a humble guy. I was sobbing 3/4 of the way through the show, crying. Grown man in my basement by myself, full out beautiful crying. I mean, you have this story that's about these characters and you've got 10 episodes, and in one episode you completely got taken through this
yeah.
person's life. Like I was
And the power to
legitimately in
do that with
tears
two new characters as
with
well.
two new
Yeah,
characters. It was so incredibly done. I thought what they did was tasteful. I thought it was directed beautifully. Shout out to my friend Costa, who worked on the production team as a production manager for this episode. He's working on 5 of the episodes. Like I, it was, yeah. I,
yeah.
I don't know what else to say.
And it's incredible, and just the writing's very smart. Like I even love that the second they cleared out of town, Offerman just got his truck and he went to all the spots and was just like loading up. He's like, I've already had that. Like he's just had it planned out for so long.
Yep.
It just, I don't know, everything fit, everything
Yep.
worked. It shows that, you were kind of touching on it that, he was alone for so long. Like it shows that you also need people,
Oh,
right?
thank you very much, Knox. Jumped in here. You only really get Bill in the game. He helped Joel and Ellie with a car battery in person. Frank actually hated Bill and wanted to get away from you. Learn this from a note. Knox, thank you so much, as
Oh,
we
wow. So they
have
flipped
not
that
played
right
it.
around.
And then Frank got affected. Owen hung himself, which is the first time the player sees Frank. It's hinted that Frank and Bill were lovers, but so I can only imagine, Knox, if you're still watching, and hopefully you are, as someone who's obviously played through this game, the gratification of how you saw this play out and how they were able to kind of properly bring that relationship to screen. I mean, it must have been incredible because obviously when you go through a game, Knox, that's, 20, 30, 40, 50 hours long, like you become emotionally involved in these characters' lives, whether it's, the main characters of the games or the sub characters. And I don't know about you, but every time I play a game, there's always sub characters like, I wonder what that story is. I can imagine that the gratification was amazing when you got to kind of witness this.
Getting like a fully fleshed out
Mhm.
backstory. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, how do you introduce a new character and have what will probably be one of the best episodes in television of the year, if not in the last little while? And we've had some
Yeah.
pretty cool stuff come on TV. Knox jumped in again. Thank you. I'm so damn glad they changed their relationship for the show. It was so beautiful. Haven't been this messed up over an elderly since Carlin. Yeah. I mean, it was just, I hesitate to say it was a perfectly executed show.
I feel like I know where you're going with your rating on this.
I mean, how do you get introduced to a sub character? You're sobbing on the couch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just I finished. I was speechless. The last time I was ever speechless was when Jaehaerys in Game of Thrones passed peacefully in the House of the Dragon. Not Jaehaerys. Viserys.
Yeah.
But even that, nowhere close to what we experienced in this. I mean, my God, was it well done.
Yeah. It was, like you said, there's my only, like, it's not even a gripe, but like the only thing that's stopping this from getting as high as rating as I'm assuming you're going to give it is just like, I feel like I have to now go watch like Transformers or like some mind bending, like happy stuff, just because it was so sad. I don't want to say depressing. It was just so sad. But like,
there were parts where it was hard to watch in a good way.
Yeah. It was just like, yeah, it was just, but then again, like what you're seeing is very well done to make you feel that way.
Yeah.
Do I want to sign up and watch a whole season of that type of tone? No.
Yeah.
I don't.
And it's funny, you talk about happy tone, but even about the joy that their lives brought Ellie and Joel at the end. So yes, it was tragic.
Yeah, they're
obviously they decided to pass away together,
journey,
which is very Romeo and Juliet. It was phenomenal.
Did you assume that he was going to do his own glass as well?
100%.
Yeah, I called. Yeah,
100%.
I knew that was coming. Yeah,
he was his reason for living. Like he waited for years to become who he really was. But in the end, when they're walking around the house, Ellie's like, they have hot water. I'm going to shower. Like what they did, what they built together, people continued to experience joy from it.
Yeah.
And I really want to touch on the strawberries, but we've kind of already passed that point in terms of like trading Joel for stuff. Well, because remember, he was so captive of his guns and so protective and didn't care about the other stuff. And then Frank trades for seeds. He's like, a gun, I don't know, a small one. And then sure enough, he leads him over there and these strawberries are growing and you can see Bill take a bite and he's weeping. He's weeping in joy as he eats a strawberry because if you think about it, they haven't had these in 10 years.
It reminded me of that episode in Firefly where they trade and they're like, what'd you trade for? And he opens up that little, or no, it's the pastor has that little container. He's like, here you go. And it's a strawberry. And like, the girl bawls as she like takes a bite. Yeah. It's like her first time ever tasting anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was such an evolution of a character. It went a way that I did not see it coming. I mean, for people like Knox who are watching, to have a taste of that character, not really know. And obviously you can't really bring that story to a video game. And they've obviously done it brilliantly for the show.
Yeah.
So is it time to rate it, or do you have any final thoughts, any final comments, or do you want to say
No, I think we've covered it all. Like I said, there's not much to say. Like I think people should watch it. If like Kelsey is turned off by zombie shows and stuff like that, and she kind of like watched a little half-ass in the background, but I feel like if she was giving the show a solid attention span from the start, she'd be into it.
Some of the best content we digest as people that love film are things that are sometimes uncomfortable to watch. You have to be in a mood to do that. And that's okay. Sometimes we're not. Sometimes we need to watch a Transformers.
Yeah.
But I gear up now every single Sunday for what's going to happen. There's that much anticipation for what's coming. So I will rate this first. Oh, Knox jumping in. I love it. Bill and Frank had the best life during the apocalypse. They had hot water, shelter, security, grilled with their lover. Yeah, I mean, you literally nailed it. They thrived. They loved. They lived in a time where the world was ending. Amazing.
Well, especially with Bill, like he was a shut-in in his basement, probably, right? Like not trusting anyone. Like they had that argument where he's like, "You think all the government's Nazis and blah blah." Like,
yeah. The government is Nazis. Yeah, but they were back then.
Yeah.
And he was never able to be who he truly was.
Yep.
I'm going to rate this episode the highest I have ever rated a show to this point. I believe is 9.4.
I was 9.5 last for the first 2 episodes.
I am a 9.8 on this. It is by far the highest I've given any episode. The only reason I wouldn't give it a 10, and I can't even believe
I thought you were dropping the 10. I thought you were dropping the 10.
I can't even believe we're talking about 10. For anybody who hasn't watched this before, like an 8.5 is a really good episode in our world. Like if you're touching 9, you have left a very lasting impression on Tyler and I for a rating. I'm a 9.8 on this episode. I thought it was virtually perfect. I had that one small, tiny little complaint where I think they could have changed a moment. But again, it's just my opinion. Yeah, 9.8. It was, pardon my language, it was a fucking masterpiece of an hour and 15 minutes. A masterpiece.
Yeah, Tyler? I was 9.5 last week. I'm probably 9.6.
Yeah.
Again, the reasons why I won't give it higher are just personal taste, and it's just personal to me, right? Like if it was like, not a sad love like, it feels stupid trying to defend it, but 9.6 is ridiculously high. It's the highest I've given a show.
Yeah.
I think back to the Andor finale and how moved I was by like Marv's final speech and stuff like that. And I gave that at my time my highest rating. And then to look at now this episode, and it's just like, that shows you how much I thought of it.
Yeah. My concern is, what do you do from here? How do you go back to shooting zombies in the face? Like,
yeah. Well,
they have a tough task after this.
Well, it's going to be, we are going to get some pretty good relationship between Joel and Ellie, I'd imagine. They're going to have to go through some heartbreaking, tense stuff, and that could, maybe push the rating a touch higher. I can only imagine what the season finale is going to be like for this show. Like 3 episodes in, and it's like literally every episode's an absolute home run, grand slam. Like,
yeah, I'm going to say that I won't rate an episode higher than this.
You don't think you'll rate another one higher than this?
No.
I think you will.
I think that they tackled a very complex, complicated topic. I think they did it with elegance. I think they did it with class. They mixed in action. They mixed in everything you could possibly want to in this day and age, and it was done so seamlessly. Yeah.
Shout out Nick Offerman.
It was insane. All right. Well, thank you very much. Sorry, we're at about 23 minutes. We're a little bit longer than normal. Knox, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for the comments. I learned a little bit more about the game. If I wasn't such a scaredy cat, I would consider going back to play it. In fact, I still might. Like, I am hooked on this. Tyler, what do you got going on? Anything you're developing right now for your channel? And will we see you Wednesday? Or as my grandma would say, Wednesday.
Well, the kids have been sick a lot, so I have a bunch of ideas for videos, but they've been on the back burner. But we will see each other Wednesday, and I actually learned something about that very underwhelming episode we watched last Wednesday. There was significant hidden meaning, but we'll break it down on Wednesday.
Can't wait.
Yeah,
I cannot wait. Well, for Tyler from the Rogue Leader, myself, Ged from Fabulous Flix, thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. Thank you for the 2 thumbs up tonight, to Knox for chiming in, and for those that tuned in. Looking forward to next week. Cheers.
Peace out, everyone.